In this demonstration, we're going to focus on ways you can work with synchronous technology for imported parts. When I go to my File Open dialog box, you'll notice in our list of files we can bring in directly to Solid Edge, we have different options from different CAD systems, whether it's NX, AutoCAD, Inventor, Pro-E, SolidWorks, or neutral file formats such as STEP, IGES, or Parasolid. These files come in directly. So as I go to my NX documents, I have a sample part here, and I need to bring this in and make some changes to it. One of the differences you'll notice with an imported part is we don't have a list of features to work with. Everything is encompassed inside of this part copy. I may need to make individual changes to features, whether it's changing the length of a rib, removing different features, or just maybe modifying different areas of the part with dimensional values or relationships. We still have the ability to do that. One of the examples I want to show you is, for example, I can parameterize this imported part just as easily as I can a native Solid Edge file. So as an example, I want to go to my dimensioning tools, and as I look at this rib, I may want to go through and specify its thickness, its length, and maybe some other characteristics. So in this example, I'll place this dimension, and I know for my purposes I want the thickness of the ribs to be maintained. So I'm going to place the dimension and lock the value. I'll also go through and maybe place a dimension for the overall width, and then maybe place a dimension on the opposite side, again to designate what the thickness of the rib is. So again, graphically, we can tell which dimensions are free to change, which ones are currently locked by the color of the dimension. So in this example, you'll notice I may want to change the width. So as I specify or click on the dimension, again, I have control over which side I want to move. Maybe I want to spread this rib apart but maintain its position, just lengthen it a little bit. So again, I can use my scroll wheel to incrementally change the size of the rib. And kind of get an idea of what's happening here, how this is going to be modified. Or again, I can type in the new value by typing in the value of 15. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit because I want you to pay attention to what's happening on the opposite side. What you'll notice is as I start to make changes to the rib, notice how on the opposite side the rib is also changing. And again, Live Rules is picking up the fact that we have different faces or planes that are aligned. So again, as I make a change to one side, it finds different relationships or finds different statuses of the part. So in this case, it finds planar alignment. It also finds that there is some symmetry between those two ribs. So again, I can make one simple change on one side and have it affect the other side as well. Again, if I don't want the other rib to be modified, I can simply turn off the live rule that makes that adjustment on the other side. Some other things you can do when you're working with imported parts besides placing dimensions and making changes that way is I can also copy features within the part. As an example, I may need an additional support rib in this open area here. And I have some existing geometry here. One way that I can make copies of that is to use a tool called Selection Manager. Now we've seen in previous demonstrations where you can go through and you can individually select faces of your part. So for example, if I wanted to click that face, I can hit the space bar and add other faces to my select set. For more complex features though, that may be a little cumbersome. What I may want to do is have Solid Edge find what looks to be a feature. So we have an option here called Selection Manager. It can also be accessed by hitting the Shift key in the space bar. But you'll see a little green dot next to your cursor when you enter into this selection mode. And notice as I select one face, Selection Manager will allow me to do a number of things. I can find multiple faces within this box. You'll notice I could find tangent faces or tangent chain. I can find other faces that may be coplanar, parallel, or perpendicular. But one of the powerful tools here is this option called Recognize. And what it'll do is it'll recognize cutouts, or it'll recognize if that's a rib or a boss, or it may recognize the entire feature. In this case, the rib as well as the two bosses on either end. What I may want to do in this example is just copy the internal part, or the internal rib, or that rib that sits there in the middle. And as I select that, notice it finds all the faces associated with that feature for me. Now that I have all those faces selected, I may want to go ahead and copy that to this open area. And again, I can either hit the copy option here or hold Control key on the keyboard and specify which direction I want to copy. Now you'll notice, because of the two bosses on the original, notice how I have open ends on either side. But what's nice about Solid Edge is when I specify that maybe I want to copy this, let's say 12 millimeters to the front, Solid Edge is intelligent enough to extend those ribs out to the sidewalls for me. So again, I don't have to close up the ends and then push those out. The system is intelligent enough to go ahead and do that for me. Some other things where Selection Manager may come into play is you'll notice here on this side of the mouse, this is looks like to be the bottom shell of a mouse. You'll notice that there are lots of different angles and cuts, and I may want to make changes to this entire area simultaneously. And again, if I hit Shift Spacebar and go into Selection Manager mode, again I can find all of those faces very easily by going through the list here. So whether I want to recognize the cutout, maybe recognize the entire rubber boss, or in this case when I select feature, notice how it'll go through and find all of those faces for me. And what's nice about that is, let's say maybe in this example I need to rotate those faces some value. So again, I can just reposition my steering wheel, snap it to the center, and then I can go through at this point in time and rotate those faces to some angle. Maybe in this case I want to rotate them, I don't know, maybe 45 degrees. Some other options here, maybe I don't need certain features, and again, Selection Manager mode, I can go through and very easily recognize those cutouts. So I may go through and select those cutouts or recognize that feature, and I can go around to each of those very quickly and grab all of those faces. We'll select the one here on the fourth cutout, and then very easily just hit the delete key on the keyboard and get rid of faces that I don't need. And then just one more example here. Obviously there's so much more you can do, but for purposes of time, let's go through one more example and just show you how you can copy features from one part to another. Let's say I'm working with another plastic component, and I know that I need a rib and maybe a boss structure within that for some support or for some mounting locations. And what I can do here is I know that this rib and this boss structure is very similar to the one that I may need. So instead of recreating features over and over again, what I'll do in this case is use Selection Manager to recognize the entire feature. And once I've selected all those faces, what I can do is, again, I can reposition my steering wheel as my reference point. And then just using standard copy and paste options, I'm going to copy all those faces to the clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and reopen the part that I'm working on, the other component. So again, here's a plastic handle, one half of a plastic handle for the company that I work with. And very easily I can come in and just hit the paste option, and that's going to copy that feature from one part into my part that I'm working with. What that's going to give me the ability to do is I can now snap this rib and boss structure into my new part. Now what I may want to do is just kind of eyeball where this is going to go, and I'll go ahead and click to place it into my part. What you'll notice is it's basically just floating up there in space. But what's nice about this is maybe I want to reposition this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap the steering wheel over to the other boss, and then I can simply rotate, or I can just move or translate this part to any location on my new part. In this case, I'm just going to rotate that around. Maybe I want to reposition it down in this area somewhere. Again, you can type in that value, or you can just click out in space. Maybe I'll rotate this just a little bit more up in this area. But again, you can see how easy it is to reposition things. Again, you can add dimensions and things of that nature. But again, this thing's still kind of floating up in space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of those faces, I'm going to right mouse click and say attach it to this part. And what you'll notice is it'll extend the bottom faces of my structure down to where it matches the contour of the part that I'm working with. So from here, what's nice is you can go in, you can make adjustments to that structure. So maybe for example, I want to take this face here. Actually, let's go ahead and take those two faces. Maybe I want to move those down a little bit so I can adjust those faces, or maybe I actually want to take that top face as well and have it reposition. I don't know, let's say maybe a 1/4 of an inch down. And Solid Edge, again, it's going to show me exactly what it's going to do. But there I can reposition that. I may also want to take maybe the top face of this particular boss, maybe extend that down a little bit. Right now it's a little bit too tall for this part. But again, you can see how you can adjust it and make this feature work or fit for any new component that you may have. So again, if I want to go through and make other changes, I can. But again, I just wanted to show how easy it is to take features from other parts and bring them into other parts, and then again being able to reuse data that you already have.